I've seen a number of requests in the comments to talk about how the totality of a sentence is reached when there is more than one offence charged, such as is the case with the Alex Belfield case. So I'm going to talk generally rather than about that case, but the general principles of how totality works are as follows. Now, as with most things to do with sentencing, there is also a guide about this on the Sentencing Council Guidelines website, which I will link in the description below. And the fundamental starting point is that the guidelines refer to general principles. That is where all courts, when sentencing for more than one offence, must pass a total sentence which reflects the offending behaviour across the board so that it is just and proportionate. And this can be structured either where the sentences are running concurrently, meaning at the same time, or consecutively, meaning one after another. And there are some factors that the court considers to determine which it is, which I'll come back to in a moment. So first of all, the guidelines refer to the general approach. That is, first of all, considering a sentence for each individual offence, referring to the relative sentencing guidelines for that offence. So it might be the same offence, but it might be two separate offences that the court is looking for a sentence for. Secondly, having determined what the individual sentence should be, the court will then look to determine whether or not it should be a concurrent sentence or a consecutive sentence. Now, concurrent sentences will usually be those where there are two separate offences, but they occur from the same factual matrix. For example, an offence of dangerous driving that causes injuries to more than one person, or it is part of the same journey on more than one occasion, but during the same journey. Another example might be where there is a robbery occurring, so there's possession of a weapon, there might be the robbery itself, and that might cause some other kind of damage, such as criminal damage or assault, within the same factual matrix. There would be separate offences on the charge sheet, but they all occurred together at the same time, and thus, having determined each of the relevant sentences, the court might determine that they should all be served concurrently at the same time because they all occurred at the same time on the same factual matrix. But it's important to remember when concurrent sentences are passed, they should reflect the overall criminality involved. Moving on to consecutive sentences, that's where one is running directly after another. They are usually appropriate where there are a number of offences that occur at different times or out of a different set of facts. The examples given in the guidelines include where an offender has committed a theft on one occasion but a common assault against a different victim on a separate occasion. They are two completely unrelated and separate offences and therefore would attract consecutive sentences. Alternatively, under the guidelines, offences might be considered to be unrelated because whilst they might be committed at the same time, simultaneously, they might be considered to be distinct if there's some kind of aggravating element that requires this recognition. And one example given is where the defendant is convicted of a drugs offence and also possession of a firearm. Now, the possession of a firearm in and of itself doesn't really relate to the drugs offence, but it does aggravate the committing of the drug offence itself. Therefore, whilst they are in effect separate offences but committed simultaneously, one is aggravating the other, and therefore the court might consider that they should run consecutively. Under Part B of the guidelines, it provides another scenario where consecutive sentences might be seen to be more appropriate. That might be where the offences are the same or of a similar kind, and the overall criminality will not be sufficiently reflected by a concurrent sentence, and this might include where offences are committed against different people, such as repeat thefts or attacks on different people or different shop assistants, as is the example given. Or as another example, the offences that would otherwise be separate are committed against the same individual. But in either case, the overall test is that the sentence should be considered to be just and proportionate. There is, of course, a significant body of case law, which I won't go through in this particular video. Maybe I will pull out one or two to give some examples, and the guidance on this is extensive, so I will link that in the description below so you can go and read that yourself. But otherwise, I hope that was a useful overview. Please do like the video and subscribe, and as always, thank you for watching.